Welcome back. Let's install Redis onto our laptop or computers in order to actually use it and test out some commands. Now, keep in mind when it comes to databases, most of the time you won't actually be running it from your computer. In most cases, it's going to be on a server or another machine that is just dedicated to that database. And we're going to be doing the same for Redis. But because we want to test it out and make sure that we know the commands and we can run it locally as well, it's good to practice these skills. Now, in order to download it, it's very, very simple. We simply go to their download tab. And you see here that, they have Docker images as well, which we might use later on, hint, hint. But for now, we're going to get the stable version, 4.0. And you can click download here. Or if you keep scrolling down, you see that you have some commands that you can use to get it. So you have two options. You can either just click on the download link that is up here, which will download a file, as you can see over here. And with that file, you can actually just open it and then run these commands. But for now, just because we have these available to us, I'm going to run the commands. So the first one is to get this thing that will get us Redis installed. So let's open up a terminal here and run the command. You see that it's installing. And once that's done, we have to open it up with the tar command. And then finally, we can cd now into the Redis 4.0.9. You might have different version. As long as it's above 4.0, you should be fine. And this folder was created for us, so let's just go in there. I'm going to clear. And then we see that the final command that we need is make, which executes something called the makefile. So let's do that. And this is going to be running to set everything up for us. If we go back to the documentation, we see that the only thing we can do now is to run the source Redis server. That is to run the Redis server just like we did with Postgres to make sure that the Postgres server is running, and it's probably going to be running on some port. And then we can run the redis-cli command to actually have access to this database and run some Redis commands. So let's minimize this and go back, and all right, we see that everything has been loaded. It gives us a suggestion to run make test to make sure that everything has been installed correctly. And it'll run through some tests here. I'm not going to go through that just because I trust that everything was set, but it's always good to run make test. All right, so here you see that we've downloaded the tar file. We've opened it into the Redis folder, and now I'm inside of this folder. I have a nice background today. For any of those wondering where I'm getting these backgrounds from, I have this desktop app called ArtPip that has a different painting every day, which is nice. Anyway, back to what we're doing. I can go over here and type source, remember, just like the documentation suggested, Redis server to start the server. If I press enter, you'll see that it asks on my computer if I can give access so that it accepts incoming network connections. I'll allow it. And you see that we're now ready to accept connections. And it gives you a nice little graphic here too that you can see. All right, I'm going to move this on this side. So this server is running now. And I'm going to open up another window. And with this one, we're going to run the CLI. I'm going to say source, or I have to go into the Redis folder and then run source Redis CLI. And there we go. We're connected to this server and we can start running some Redis commands. In the next video, we're going to learn some of these commands and how we can actually enter data into our Redis server. I'll see you in that one. Bye-bye. Welcome back. Now, remember with databases, there's a ton of them, and each one of them is good for a particular problem. It has some benefits and some cons as well. Now, with databases, you always want to think about the big picture and what the benefits of that database is. In our case, we know that Redis is an in-memory storage. So that means it's super, super fast for us to access. We can get values really, really fast from it. But it has that downside where it only takes a snapshot and writes it on disk occasionally. So you might lose some data if the server goes down. And we know that Redis is often used for small pieces of data like session management or maybe even caching some small data, which we'll talk about. But another part of databases you want to look at is what kind of data types can they support? And based on these data types that fit your needs, a database might be good or bad for your project. So in this video and the next couple of videos, we're going to talk about what some of these data types are that Redis uses and what we're going to use in the future section on sessions and JWT. The very basic one, and if you remember, Redis is a key value storage. That is, we give it a key and a value, and we're going to be able to access that value from that key. So let me show you. The very basic commands with Redis is to set, and look at that. It already gives me options and hints by downloading this Redis CLI, what I can put. So I can set, key, and value, and some options as well. So let's say that I want to set name to Godzilla. And that's a string. If I press enter, I get OK. Now within here, I can now get this name whenever I want by saying get name. And I get Godzilla. And that's it. Key value storage is simply that. You give it a key, you give it a value, and now you can use the get command to get that value back. Another command you can run is to see if something exists. So if I do exists name, I get, yep, I have one name. And I can also run the delete command. So I can delete the name command. Now if I run exists name, nope, there's no name there. And if I do get name, nope, no, I have absolutely nothing. Before I keep going into more commands, I want to show you that, once again, documentations are your friend. If you go to their documentation tab, which I have opened over here, they have a ton of resources for you. But the one we're interested in is the full list of commands. And as you can see here, they give you a really nice breakdown on what everything does. So let's have a look on one of these. We see that we want to try the expire command. And if I click on here, we see that it sets a timeout on key. After the timeout has expired, the key will automatically be deleted. All right, so let's say that we want to try this out. We can just simply say expire, or we have to set something first. So let's just set let's say session, and it will be Jenny's session. And we'll say that expire session in how many seconds? Let's say that we want to have it in 10 seconds to expire. Now if I do get session, I get Jenny. I wait 10 seconds though and try get session again. Uh-oh, session is gone because I made it expire. How cool is that? Again, each database has its own set of features, and Redis has this nice expire, where you can just expire things to be deleted from the database whenever you want. Another really useful tool was something like perhaps sessions. If you want to expire a session, for example, of a user where after, let's say, a day, they have to re-sign in into the app, that's an easy thing that we can do right away with Redis. Let's try a few more commands. We can set counter to 100. Again, we're just doing a simple key value storage. Now we can do another command, increment by. That's a little tough to spell, but increment by. We give it a key counter, and we can say 50, or let's do 33. Look at that. Now our counter is incremented by 33. Very cool. And as you can imagine, there's also the decrement or decrement key, and we'll decrement the counter, and we can give it, let's say, 33. And yeah, it actually, with decrement, the default and the only working default is that it is just decrementing by 1. If I run this, you see that the integer has now been decremented by 1. All right, a few more things to go through, but let's take a break, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Welcome back. Let's try a few more commands and then explain to you what data type we've just been working on. So the first command that we're going to add to our arsenal will be mset for multiple set. So in here now, I can add multiple things. Let's say that I want A to be 2, and I want B to be 5. And I can keep tacking them on. Now I can just say get A, get B. And I've set multiple items in the database. I can also do multiple get and get both A and B, just like that. All right, we just learned some basic Redis commands, but you may have noticed something. The only data type that we've been really working on are strings. Even if I set the number over here, we see that it returns it as string. And we just learned the first data type that Redis handles, and that is a simple string. But there's actually a few more things that we can use in Redis. You see, Redis can handle 5 data types, or 5 major data types. There's a few extra others and things that they're adding on, but the 5 main ones that you're going to use are strings. The next one is hashes, lists, sets, and sorted sets. And we've just learned how to handle strings, but we need to learn how to handle the other data types as well. So let's cover those in the next upcoming videos. I'll talk to you soon. See you in the next one. Bye-bye. Welcome back. The next data type we're going to talk about, again, we've covered strings. The next data type that exists in Redis are called hashes. And hashes are maps between string fields and string values. And the best way to think about them are simply like objects. Just like in JavaScript we have objects, Redis hashes are very, very similar. Let me demonstrate. I can set a hash type, data type, by saying mset. And now within here, I can say user ID, let's say 45, name, let's go with Johnny. And here we've just created a hash with a key user, and this key has both ID of 45 and name of Johnny. So if I do get, hash get, and I do ID, and that doesn't work because I have to say what is the hash, that is, what is the key that is identifying this object. So it would have to be get user ID, and I get 45. If I do get user name, I get Johnny. And if I do something like get all, and I just give it the key, look at that. I get all the identifying criterias of the user. Again, a good way to think about hashes in Redis is simply like JavaScript objects. All right, let's talk about lists in the next video. The next data type we're going to talk about in Redis are called lists. And lists are implemented using something called linked lists rather than arrays. And that's getting into a talk about data structures. So we're not going to get too into it, but the main principle is that insertion is really, really fast with lists. So if you're adding things to the lists, it's really, really fast. But it takes a bit of time than arrays when you're searching for a key. So think of it this way. Lists are useful if you have really long lists and you need to add elements quickly to that list, and you want to use something like that. Otherwise, you want to use something like sorted lists in Redis, which is better for when you're searching or getting those elements. So let's give it a try. The first thing we're going to do is say L push, that is left push. So from left of where the head of the list is, we're going to add 10 as a key. Or sorry, I have to name the key. So I'm going to say that this is going to be, let's say, our list, and we're going to add 10. And let's say I also want to do a right push. And this right push is going to be again on our list. And it's going to have, let's say, hello as a string. And this is going to enter it from the right of the list. Now, if I do something like get our list, we see that because our list is a data type list, we can't just use our string get on Redis. We even get a wrong type operation against a key holding the wrong kind of value. Now, the way we can actually read some of these lists is if I do something like L range, and we give it a range that we want to grab the data from. You see the key, start, and stop. So I'm going to say I want our list, and we want from, let's say, 0 to 1. I get 10 and hello. If now, let's say I do a left push to our list of 55 and do the range, L range, from 0 to 1, I get 55 and 10 because I only get the two values from 0 to 1. If I do 0 to 2, I get the 5, 55, 10, and hello. You can also run commands like ltrim to trim your list, or you can run things like rdrop, which is drop whatever's on the right-hand side. And I can just say drop from our list, or sorry, instead of rdrop, it's actually rpop, just like in JavaScript. So it's our list. So now if I go to the L range, our list 0 to 2, nope, there's no more hello because we popped that. Not drop, pop. All right, so these are lists. Let's talk about the next data type. Welcome back. There's two other data types that we want to talk about in Redis, and they're called sets and sorted sets. And sets in Redis are unordered collection of strings. And that's why we have two types. We have sorted sets, which are ordered, and unordered, which are sets. And with sets, it's possible to add, remove, and test for existing members in a group. And you might be thinking, sets kind of sounds like lists. But the one major difference with sets is that you have this desirable property of not allowing repeated values or members. So adding the same element multiple times, it's actually not going to work, or it's just going to give you a single copy of that element in the database. And this is a really, really nice property to have. We make sure that we don't have any duplicates in our items. Let's try out some set commands to see how we can add sets, again, unordered collections of strings. We simply say s add for sets add, and we give it a key. So let's say our set, and we'll say that we want to add a collection of numbers. Let's go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we just added some elements to our sets. Now I can say s members and give it the key our set, and we get the members of whatever our set is. Now, if I do s add our set 1, 2, 3, or let's do add 1, 2, 3, 4, I get integer 0, and if I do s members our set, I still get the original 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, because this has already existed. We've already created our set right up here. Another nice feature of sets is I can run the command s is member. And now with is member, I can say our set and is 5 a member of our set. Yep, I get 1. But if I say if 20 is a member of my set, and nope, I get 0. Means it's not a member of the our set value or our set key. Now, there's also such thing as sorted sets. Now, Redis sorted sets, just like sets, do the no repeating collection of strings that we've already demonstrated. But the difference is that every member of a sorted set is associated with a score. And this score allows it to be ordered from smallest to greatest. So let's have a look at how this works. If I do sorted sets by saying zadd instead of sadd, I can add different things. Let's say that sorted set is going to be team. We'll give it a number. We'll say team has 50 members. We'll also say wizards. Now, let's say that the next team, which is not wizards, will be the Cavaliers. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. And this team has 40 members. I can now access this by saying z range. And this z range, I'll give it the team key from 0 to 1. And you see that now I have the range, however it's ordered. Even though I've inserted wizards first into the sorted sets, the Cavaliers appear first because the team number is lower with Cavaliers. And remember, it goes from lower to higher. So if I add another team, let's say that only has 1, and they're going to be called, let's say, bolts. I can now say z range, and we want to grab all 3. And I have bolts, Cavaliers, and wizards all sorted. And there's other useful commands that we can use. We can say z rank, for example, and we can find out what the team wizards rank is. And we get that the rank is 2. Again, it's not 3 because the order starts from 0. So 0, 1, 2. All right. There's plenty other commands that you can learn with Redis, and they're really easy to follow just with your documentation. However, you should have a good idea of why we'd want to use Redis. If we want a fast database that scales really, really well if we have a lot of users, but also helps us out that we want to store the data types that it supports, like the ones that we have, well, we can do some really neat things with it. And like I said, we're going to be using Redis to manage our sessions in the sessions and JWT section of the course. Now that we have a good understanding of Redis, go try out some of these commands, play around with it. It's a lot of fun, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.